Okay, everyone, so welcome back. So, in this segment, as we try to understand this transition from Vedic sacrifice to Vedic ritual, I just wanted to have a kind of sidebar in a way about an ancient Vedic myth that's deeply connected to this transition. The myth dates from the late layers of the Rigveda Samhita, sometime around 1000 BC, right when this transition was taking place. This is the mythic sacrifice of the primordial man named Purusha, and it led to the creation of the world. It's a very important myth that's been used to justify a lot of different things in Hindu society over the years, not least of which is that normative system of varnas, or castes, the four-tiered hierarchy that Brahmin thinkers used to kind of organize the social world. Now, how could a myth be both foundational to the idea of ritual and the idea of social hierarchy? What's the link between these two kind of different things? The basic myth can be summarized in one sentence. The gods sacrificed the primordial man, Purusha. They cut up all his different body parts in order to create the different aspects of the cosmos: the heavens, the earth, creatures, humans, everything. Purusha in this hymn is kind of an abstract concept. It's a deification of humanness, humanity, of man with a capital M, right? And it's specifically a male, not a female. And in later Hindu mythology, actually the story sticks around, but because gods are thought about differently in the future here, the story is going to get attributed now to the god Prajapati or Brahma, and not Purusha. We'll talk about that later. The story stays the same. His body represents the underlying unity of this cosmos, and the myth acts as a symbol of also the Vedic sacrifice itself and offers a kind of mythic truth or rita that justifies the existence of the ritual. Why do we do this ritual for the gods? Because the gods themselves had done it for us way back in the primordial beginning. So we kind of owe it to them. That's the logic behind it. Another aspect of this myth is that it's the only one that mentions the varnas, or social classes, in the entire Rigveda. So in doing so, the hymn also kind of lays down a mythic truth, or rita, to justify the existence of social hierarchy as well. In the rest of the Rigveda, in all of those other 1027 hymns, there are only three types of people that are mentioned: priests, the Brahmins, protectors, kshatriyas, and regular people, or vaishyas. The word shudra, which is the label given to laborers or servants, occurs just once in the entirety of the Rigveda, and it's right here in 10.90. Why? Why is it? Well, one idea is that by the time that this hymn was incorporated into the Rigveda Samhita, the Vedic society had become more agrarian, and they required large numbers of people to do kind of the unskilled, hard physical labor required on farms, as opposed to the other kinds of people who were owning the land, who were making crafts, who were trading, and who were doing other money-making activities. So it got differentiated. By the way, it also seems by the time of this late Vedic period, we first start to see money, currency, introduced into the North Indian cultural life. So as this Vedic societal structure changes, it needed a new Vedic charter as to why it should be that way. And this is what the Purusha myth does. It provides a charter for this new kind of society. Now, while the Purusha myth might have been a charter for both ritual and social life, I just want to emphasize that it doesn't mean that Vedic people were actually sacrificing humans. Some European scholars back in the 1800s used to kind of think this and say like, oh, those human sacrifices. But there's no shred of evidence to indicate that human sacrifices were ever a part of Vedic culture, actual Vedic culture. So let's now look at this hymn from the Rigveda, and I'll highlight some key moments that I think are worth a closer look. Here we go. The man has 1,000 heads, 1,000 eyes, 1,000 feet. Having covered the earth on all sides, he extends 10 fingers' breadth beyond. The man alone is this whole world, what has come into being and what is to be. Moreover, he's the master of immortality when he climbs beyond this world through food. So much is his greatness, but the man is more than this. A quarter of him is all living beings, 3/4 are the immortal in heaven. With his 3/4 the man went upward, but 1/4 of him came to be here again. From there he strode out in different directions towards what eats and what does not eat. Here we can see that the Purusha isn't just some ordinary person. It's not a human sacrifice here, but it's a mythic construction. They're imagining the whole cosmos as forming one massive cosmic body. And the earth is only a tiny part of it, just 1/4, actually. This means that there's a certain kind of paradox that's at play in the scene. Which one came first? Was it man or was it creation? It's one of those kind of Vedic Mobius strip puzzles. From him Viraj was born, from Viraj the man. Upon his birth he reached beyond the earth, from behind, and also from in front. More paradoxes. The word Viraj here means material creation, the perceptible world. It's both produced from man and produces man. Chicken and egg type of thing. Now the hymn's going to start talking about the sacrifice that the gods do of this Purusha. When, with the man as the offering, the gods extended the sacrifice, spring was its melted butter, summer its firewood, autumn its offering. On that ritual grass, they consecrated that sacrifice, the man, born at the beginning. With him the gods sacrificed also the sadhyas and those who were seers. The sadhyas here are a group of celestial beings. They're kind of like the rishis, the seers that are also mentioned here, but maybe like their heavenly equivalents of the rishis in the world. Now let's see what the gods now get from their sacrifice that they've done. From that sacrifice, when it was offered in full, the clotted butter mixture was collected. The sacrifice was made into animals, those of the air, those belonging to the wilderness, and those belonging to the village. They also created now aspects of the Vedas themselves. It's kind of self-reflexive here. From the sacrifice, when it was offered in full, the verses and chants were born. Meters were born from it, that sacrificial formula. From it, that was born. Now, then they're going to create different kinds of animals. From it, horses were born, and whatever animals have teeth in both jaws. Cows were born from it. From it were born goats and sheep. Now the poet is going to start asking a different question about Purusha's sacrifice. When they apportioned the man, into how many parts did they arrange him? What was his mouth? What was his 2 arms? What are said to be his 2 thighs, his 2 feet? The answer to these questions gets us into our kind of infamous statement that gets copied over and over again about the stratification of Hindu human society. Let's see how it goes. Right? The Brahmin was his mouth, the ruler was made his 2 arms, as to his thighs, that's what the free man was, the Vaishya. From his 2 feet, the servant, the Shudra, was born. So you can see how the hymn envisions society. It's hierarchical, right? Head, arms, thighs, feet. It's hierarchical, but it's also connected together. So each limb is equally as important for society to function as a whole. That's not all that comes from Purusha's body parts, which is sometimes forgotten. The moon was born from his mind, from his eye, the sun was born, from his mouth, Indra and Agni, from his breath, Vayu was born. From his navel was the mid-space, the ether, basically. From his head, the heavens developed. From his 2 feet, the earth, and the directions from his ears. Thus they arranged the worlds. So now the poet's going to close his hymn with a charter for what this original sacrifice was like. It's kind of an interesting section here. Its enclosing sticks were 7. The kindling sticks were made 3 times 7, when the gods, extending the sacrifice, bound the man as the sacrificial animal. With the sacrifice, the gods performed the sacrifice for themselves. These were the first foundations. These its greatness accompanied it to heaven's vault, where the ancient sadhyas and the gods are. The sentence is especially designed, I think, to blow your mind. With the sacrifice, the gods practiced the sacrifice for themselves. What? What could that mean? Well, what this kind of bizarre statement does, I think, is to isolate the paradox that's at the heart of any Vedic ritual, or actually any ritual at all, for that matter. Ultimately, the reason that we do any ritual is just the ritual. It's just that we do the ritual. Right? We sacrifice the sacrifice with the sacrifice. In the end, maybe it still seems kind of nonsensical to us. Part of it, again, is this Vedic paradox. It's a riddle that you're supposed to solve. And I'm curious if any of you feel like you've solved the riddle of Purusha. Now, part of the problem, of course, is that we are living in so far away in time and place from when the hymn was composed, so we can't get really a grasp of the worldview that this poet was operating with. Scholars, though, have spent a great deal of energy looking at all the different Vedic texts very carefully to try and unpack that ancient Vedic worldview. So this is what we're going to do in our next segment, which is to take a closer look at what scholars have found about Vedic thought and worldview. So until then, please try not to sacrifice any Purushas, and we'll see you soon.